Hi everyone, Petrik here. So today's video, it will be a book review. It will be a book review on Daughter of the Empire by Raymond E, Feist and Janny Wurts. It's been a while since I did a book review on this channel, but I really have to talk about this book because I am so amazed by how good this was. I mean, Daughter of the Empire was published more than 30 years ago, and I think this one deserves to be called a classic. It is a magnificent page-turning political intrigue with an amazing heroine to root for. I am seriously shocked by how good this was, considering how I felt. Well, how disappointed I was with Magician by Raymond E. Feist. I was equally terrified and excited to get into this one because, in the first place, Riftwar Empire trilogy was the series that captured my attention. It captured my attention more than Riftwar Saga. But you know what? I loved it. I loved it so much. The Daughter of the Empire triumphed over the Magician in every possible way, in my opinion. Now, I'm not really sure whether the significant improvement in quality is due to Feist's improvement as a writer, or maybe it is due to Janny Wurts' involvement. It could be both. But Raymond E. Feist himself mentioned in the acknowledgement of Magician that Janny Wurts made this trilogy so much better, and I definitely believe him. I will elaborate more on this later. But let me get this clear once more. I was disappointed with The Magician. I can't even force myself to continue to the sequel, Silverthorn. But this, definitely one of the best start to a series that I've read. Daughter of the Empire is the first book in Riftwar Empire trilogy by Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wurts. Riftwar Empire is a spin-off and second series in the Riftwar cycle. And I don't usually say this, but I do not think that you need to read Riftwar Saga to enjoy reading this one. At least not this one anyway. I don't know about the sequels. It would be beneficial, of course, but not mandatory. There are only a few really small cameos from Magician. The story in Daughter of the Empire follows Mara Akoma, the youngest child of the ancient and noble Akoma family, who is about to take her pledge of servitude to the goddess Lashima. However, the ceremony is disrupted by news of her father and brother's death in battle. Despite her grief, Mara now has to take up the mantle of the ruling lady of the Akoma and participate in the ruthless game of council. This is a terrible and harsh responsibility for Mara. She has no experience in politics, and yet the game of council is the deadliest contest of politics in the Empire. And this is also one of the reasons why the book is incredibly brilliant. As you can probably guess from the premise of this novel, for those of you who don't know, Daughter of the Empire is a political-heavy novel, and that means, by the nature of political fantasy, it means there is a lot of scheming, there is a lot of talking. And these are indeed true for this novel as well. That being said, it is immensely important to note that Daughter of the Empire never felt boring. For me, it's the opposite. The stakes are dangerously high throughout the entire novel, the pacing was maintained incredibly well, and none of the pages ever felt wasted. Mara constantly gambles life and death with every word that she speaks and every action that she does and every schemes that she planned. Every single character in this book must always pay attention to the words they speak and the actions they do, because the game of council is utterly bloody and vicious. The tradition of Kelewan, the setting of this book, demands that honor to be upheld at all costs, and that means every words and every actions will always be taken into account. There is no exception to anyone, and the thrilling plotline and the superb characterizations definitely made Daughter of the Empire a much more compelling read than Magician for me. It is definitely a one more chapter kind of book. You know that feeling when you're reading something and you keep on saying, you know what, I'll just read one more chapter, and then you do that over and over and over again until you read like 100 or 200 pages, and that happens to me on this book. And I have to say that I miss this kind of feeling. This doesn't happen often now. The biggest factor on why I love this novel so much more than The Magician is the great focus on characterizations. I feel that Magician is burdened by a lot of issues that I personally often encountered in a lot of fantasy books published before the year 1990. At least the one that I've read so far anyway. What do I mean by this? Well, either the prose is outdated or the narrative isn't as character-driven as I preferred, or sometimes even both in worst cases. Fortunately, that's not the case in Daughter of the Empire. This is truly an addictive book. It felt so effortless for me to care for Mara. She's a flawed character, she's not perfect, she's human, she's inspiring, and her character development was developed astonishingly well. From the impactful first chapter, I was already hooked by Mara's story. Not gonna lie, I was already hooked. It was so good. Seeing Mara, who doesn't possess any physical prowess, trying to navigate the ruthless game of council by relying solely on her wit, intelligence, and her heart, it was just so engrossing. And it's not just her. The supporting characters, whether they have a POV spotlight or not, whether they're on the good side or on the bad side, all of them enhance the quality of Mara's story. Nagoya, Arakashi, Papewayo, Keoke, Lujan. I absolutely love reading Mara's relationship development with these characters. And obviously, I love reading Mara's trying her best to outsmart her enemies. Honestly speaking, I know that this is a trilogy, but just from reading this book alone, Mara already became one of my favorite heroines of all time. I really hope that the next two books doesn't destroy my opinion on this. The world of Gallagher isn't a new setting, it is a setting visited in The Magician. I've enjoyed what I've read of Surani and Gallagher in The Magician, but I always felt that there is still so much untapped potential in the world building. Thanks to the collaboration with Janny Wurts, the world of Gallagher and the culture and traditions of Surani felt intensely vivid and well fleshed out. I didn't get this sense of immersion at all from reading Magician. When I was reading this book, it felt like I was truly there with Mara and I experienced the ancient Japanese-inspired culture. Bushido, honor, promises, and words matter beyond life and death for these characters. In addition to the intricate culture, traditions, settings, and politics, we also get a more detailed look at the Choja and their behavior. A Daughter of the Empire has close to zero portrayal of magic being used in the story. I personally don't mind whether there is a lot of magic or there isn't a lot of magic, but do not start this novel expecting there will be a lot of magic usage here. It's just not that kind of fantasy book. I've been praising Janny Wurts a lot on this novel, but I cannot help it. The collaboration with her gives the series compelling charm that I wanted from reading The Magician, and I got it here. Characters' emotions were palpable and chapters flow so much more naturally. Plus, the author's capability to set up a chapter is absolutely incredible. I'm not kidding, the chapters are indeed longer than I usually prefer, but in every chapter it felt like there is a proper beginning, a middle section, and its own climax sequences. The tension, the atmosphere, and the character building were just so damn good. I haven't read any of Janny Wurts' other book, but after this one, even though she has always been in my list of fantasy authors to check out further, but her involvement in giving Raymond E. Feist's Game of Council an astoundingly gripping narrative reassured me that I must do it. I must read more of her books. The entire novel is just so breathtaking. Daughter of the Empire exceeded my expectations wonderfully. As I always say, it is a rare occurrence for me to click this well with a fantasy book that's published pre-1990. I'm not even born yet when this book was published. But this is a political fantasy done right. I'm so curious to find out whether or how the remaining two books in the trilogy will be able to top this one. If they succeeded though, there is no doubt that Riftwar Empire trilogy will be included in one of my favorite trilogies of all time list. Yeah, that's all from me today. Let me know whether you have read this book or not, and what do you think if you have read it. If you haven't read this book, I hope that this review could convince you to give it a try. It is magnificent. I will be reading the second book for sure next month. So yeah, that's it from me today. As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support. Bye bye.